Hi, I'm Malika Bilal in for Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today in South Africa, fresh corruption allegations have put President Jacob Zuma back in the hot seat. We speak with South Africans about their concerns and the impact this is having on public confidence in government. In South Africa, whenever government corruption stories break, Twitter erupts. This is no different. The hashtag now is Gupta Gate. Omar Badar, what are people saying about it?
Yep. Malika, from protests to social media outcry, our team has covered the impact of a lot of corruption stories that have involved President Jacob Zuma over the years. Rewind back to 2013, when the leaked report found that Zuma had used taxpayer funds to make upgrades to his private home. To this day, South Africans continue to tweet and share memes about that scandal. Now, 1 year after that report, South Africa's National Assembly erupted with lawmakers chanting, "Pay back the money," demanding that the president return the public funds spent on his home. Take a look.
We want
the House is suspended
pay back
for
our
3
money.
minutes.
We want our money.
And last December, thousands took to the streets chanting Zuma must fall when the president sacked the country's well-respected finance minister without an explanation, a move that protesters found suspicious. Fast forward to today, where Zuma is now facing new allegations that we're going to get into. But for now, tweet us how you think cases like these are impacting trust in government. And of course, when you do that, use the hashtag that you see at the bottom of the screen, AJStream.
Hi, my name is Kiewit. I'm a 19 young South African, proudly South African, and I'm in the stream.
South African President Jacob Zuma sparked public outcry this month after allegations surfaced that he's been outsourcing his constitutional responsibilities to powerful friends outside of the government. The friends in question are the Guptas, Indian-born businessmen who relocated to South Africa in the 1990s and have assets in the mining, engineering, computer, and media industry. Zuma is accused of allowing members of the Gupta family to influence the appointment of ministers and deputies. Both Zuma and the Gupta family dismiss these claims.
I am in charge of the government. I'm in charge. I appoint in terms of the Constitution. There is no minister who is here who was ever appointed by the Guptas or by anybody else. Ministers who are here were appointed by me.
Despite this, the controversy has put a lot of pressure on Zuma and the country's ruling African National Congress, or ANC party, to act on cases of corruption. The ANC said they will investigate the accusations, but expressed confidence in the president's leadership. So how will all of this impact Zuma and the ANC? Well, to help us get into this, we're joined by Sipho Singiswa, a filmmaker and ANC member living in Johannesburg. Shanti Aboobaker is a writer and researcher also in Johannesburg. Alex Mashilo is the spokesman for the South African Communist Party. And Lester Kiewit, a journalist at eNCA News in Cape Town. Welcome everyone to the stream. Now, before we get started, I want to note that our team reached out to the ANC, but they declined our invitation to be part of this discussion. So Shanti, let's start with you. Help us understand the relationship between President Zuma and the Gupta family.
So President Zuma has cultivated a more than professional relationship with the Guptas, or less than professional relationship with the Guptas. So any state president would likely make friends with, well, not make friends, but would have to work along with capital in this country. But in the case of the president of South Africa and the Guptas, his son was actually given a job by them. And the relationship appears to extend far more than what would be expected in an ethical professional relationship between the two.
So non-ethical. Alex, would you describe it like that?
Look, from where we stand, what constitutes the problem in South Africa is the wider phenomenon of what we characterize as corporate corruption. And it goes beyond the person of the president and his son. We will articulate on it as the program unfolds.
So, Malika, we have people who are weighing on our online community about how media coverage basically has been of the scandal. So you have Levy over here who said, The coverage has been quite biased. The Guptas aren't even in the top 100 richest families in South Africa. Would like to see Oppenheimers and Ruperts treated equally. Those are other wealthy families in the country. And then we have Austin over here who tweeted in saying, the Gupta case is very unnecessary. We're used to corruption. What is the use of the uproar in this case? Sipho, for people who just want to know about what is unique about this particular scandal or the allegations that are being made, how would you explain what's unique here?
Well, it is true that the focus shouldn't just be on the Guptas. Hence, one of the contributors earlier on touched on the fact that the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers are being left alone. But, this isn't quite true. People have been talking, the leftists, and left organizations have, particularly on social media, have been talking about the economic impact as a result of families such as the Rupert family, the Oppenheimer family, and so on. However, I think it is wrong of people to expect that because one is not white, for example, as we call, the white supremacy monopoly capital, and therefore it is okay to be allowed, even, for black, or for that matter, people who were involved in the liberation struggle, to actually turn a blind eye on corrupt tendencies that are emanating from their side would actually be morally corrupt to turn a blind eye on that. The issue of the state and its relationship with big business is quite complex, but it needs civil society to be very alert and always challenge whatever conduct by the state officials that is meant to actually be seen to be favoring a particular group of people or class.
Right. Well, I want to pick up on that relationship between big business and the state. Lester, I want to show you a quote here on my laptop. This is from the ANC Secretary General, who says the country is in danger of becoming a mafia state where all that the state will be doing is to nurse interests of family businesses. And of course, as that tweet that Omar read a little bit earlier, this is not just the Gupta family, some people are pointing out. Is this a problem that's wider than just them?
Well, since the employment in the BEE black business laws came into effect, many people then accused that of creating a small and tiny black elite in which is mostly benefiting from government tenders and government businesses. And now we're having the name of one particular family getting a lot of prominence at the moment. So the phenomenon of a small or a tiny group of politically connected business people getting government contracts is certainly not new in a post-94 South Africa, but it's taken one family and their close proximity to President Zuma to really bring it into the fore in this phenomena, what is now being called as state capture in modern day South Africa. So I think what we're experiencing now is definitely not new, but it has been something that has been growing in the recent present.
And I wonder how widespread that perception is. I want to show you something that's floating around online. I saw it when friends of mine shared it on Facebook. This is basically private companies getting involved in this political conversation that's happening in the country. This is from Nando's, the delicious chicken restaurant out of South Africa. I want you to have a listen to their latest ad.
Oh, hey, Master Kent. Listen, I've got a Nando's delivery here for Mr. Gupta.
Oh, which one? There are 3 Guptas on this estate, each with their own gate. Look here on this map. This is the main Gupta gate. Then that's the Letty gate down there. And there's the Profli gate on the other side.
And what about this gate over there? This one looks like it could give me access to all 3 Guptas.
What? The investigate? Oh, no. Nobody bothers with that one anymore. It's been broken for years.
So it's been broken for years. The investigate. That's what he said. If you couldn't catch him, Lester, I saw you laughing there. Alex, you're also laughing. Alex, do you think this perception is widespread and this is just something that's known and accepted?
Look, the South African Communist Party has been running campaigns, and we have got the largest campaign base in South Africa of all political parties as we stand today. One of the major campaigns we have been running is a campaign on the transformation of the media. And that campaign was directed at a company called NASPALS that has got a subsidiary called DSTV, which is the single provider of pay TV in South Africa. So when you talk about this situation, you are not simply talking about a particular family. You are talking about companies which in some instances take over the policy space. And you can't see that in action unless you analyze the impact of the policies that are adopted, for example, in the communication space. The policies that have been adopted entrench the monopoly of DSTV, which is owned by this white monopoly capital company, rather than open space to diversity of ownership, diversity of perspective, and robustly independent media. So when you talk about the Guptas, you are talking about a similar phenomenon that has expressed itself in a way that has caused the hullabaloo that is going on in South Africa. And of course, we have been part of the program to ensure that our state is not captured by corporations, particularly in this instance, the Gupta family.
So, Malika, we are also hearing a lot from, Shanti, I'm actually going to come to you with this question, but we're hearing a lot from a lot of critics of the president, but also from some supporters. We have Westmac the Legend over here who tweets in saying, the way to deal with this scandal is through forgiveness, because that man has done more for South Africa than he would steal from his fellow South Africans. Goes on to say the coming of the National Development Plan, which I'm sure a lot of South Africans are benefiting from, and we cannot run away from the national health insurance, which his government has introduced. At least there is a bright side to him. Shanti, can you talk a little bit about basically whether the president is viewed, putting this scandal aside, is he somebody who's done a lot for the country and maybe people might be willing to overlook a scandal because of other achievements that he's done in the country?
Well, I mean, I think what would be broadly acknowledged is that there have been huge gains made since the advent of democracy in South Africa, but they weren't made by one individual, not Madiba, not Mbeki, and not President Zuma. Was by the ANC, as along with other actors in society. I do think that Zuma could survive this scandal from the perspective of the public, because the public actually has very little influence in his in him continuing his term as president in this country. However, what's unprecedented is that the ANC itself has taken a firm stance in opposing what they see to be a far too cozy relationship between the Guptas and the president, and that the Guptas have far too much influence. Because the major issue that started all this was whether the Guptas were taking their chances in trying to appoint cabinet ministers, with the most spurious allegation so far that they tried to appoint the defense minister. And there are certainly big questions about in terms of state security, whether that's a good thing. So I think he'll survive, but I don't think he'll survive unscathed.
Sipho, I want your thoughts on that, on whether or not he'll survive, the public versus the ANC itself.
Look, let me just go back on another issue. It is critically important to note that you cannot have any particular family, particularly a family such as the Guptas, big business and so on, having a cozy relationship with the state president, or for that matter, any of the cabinet ministers. We know this, these kind of unhealthy relationships end up influencing behind the scenes, influencing policy formulation and policy decision-making processes in order to benefit a big business, particularly those who are politically connected. And in this case, all of us as South Africans should be very, very careful, worried that the state president has had this unbecoming cozy relationship with this particular family. And as a result, there's been a lot of exposure. Now, recently we're talking about, which is an open secret anyway, we're talking about how the Gupta members of the Gupta family tried to exact themselves in the selection or appointment of cabinet ministers, particularly those who were in the state services that would benefit the Gupta family due to the businesses they were running or are still running for that matter. Now, coming back to another question, the question of, yeah, go on.
So I'd like to jump in regarding how our President Zuma is perceived. He leads a party that still won 11 million votes and holds 62% majority in the National Assembly. He still speaks to the aspirations of millions of South Africans. And if we look at the overall legacy of his administration, he's made drastic improvements when it comes to HIV/AIDS. There's been infrastructure gains, and that builds to an argument of whether that is the legacy of President Zuma or is that the legacy of ANC policymakers. But at the same time, all those policy successes is being greatly undone by scandal after scandal regarding the president in his private and personal life, but also with his connection to people who appear to be very dangerous to the structure of our country. So it's really up to, I think, the president to determine what his legacy or what he wants his legacy to be when his term as ANC president runs up in 2017, and whether we'll see him complete his term as state president by 2019.
So in terms of what should happen to the president, we have people weighing in online as well. We have Raisa, who tweeted in, who's a critic, obviously, who says he should not only resign, he should vanish. However, that begs the question, would South Africa's problems be solved if he did? I don't think so, which also leads us to another video comment that we got from Benjamin. Take a listen to what he has to say.
If anti-corruption politics in South Africa translates to a myopic focus on the problem of bad individuals in power and their access to resources through illicit mechanisms, it will not translate into any significant political changes in South Africa. What is needed instead of a focus on the problem of bad individuals in power is a set of resurgent movements outside of the narrow realm of electoral politics.
Alex, are you sympathetic to this idea that if you just get rid of some individuals, new ones who will engage in similar behavior will be there, and what you really need is some bigger social movement?
Look, the South African electoral system is not a presidential electoral system. We have a proportional electoral system, and the political parties through which public representatives are elected have an important role to play, which is why the African National Congress remains the leading political party in South Africa with the largest support of them all. And in fact, and earlier on, one of our colleagues said that the policy successes that we have achieved since 1994 are being undone by scandal after scandal. The truth is that these policy successes are not being undone. We have built over 3.5 million houses, benefiting over 16 million people. There are so many achievements we have made. A lot of people did not have access to water. Now they do have access to water. It doesn't mean that once there is a scandal, that water is switched off and those houses disappear. They remain there. Okay, those are advances. Those are important advances that we must protect, and we must build on those particular advances. But it is very important that we protect South Africa's democracy and constitution. We cannot go on the ballot to vote for a democratically elected government, which must be held accountable in terms of the checks and balances of the constitution, including the fact that this government is elected from a political party, which has a role to play to ensure that its public representatives
abide by the rules and the values of that particular
So, Alex, I think you're making a point there, and I want to share that with the rest of our panel. You mentioned that the achievements have not been undone, and I think that would be echoed here. This is a tweet that I pulled up on my screen. This is a small group, it's described of pro-Zuma picketers gathered in front of the gates of the St. George Hotel. This is when we saw an ANC high-level meeting earlier this week. So definitely people have support. He has support in certain camps. On the other hand, though, you see things like this, and this is just one of many that we're seeing, a political cartoon. This is the Guptas, the Gupta brothers, and one is saying, cute, you got a whole set, and you can see the South African cabinet in his pocket there. So I'm wondering, Shanti, how much support is there within the ANC party? And it's a question I asked earlier and didn't get a real answer. Do you see a split? Do you see that happening?
I think, well, there was a really interesting piece written in a South African newspaper today about the effects that this whole debacle around the Guptas will have in terms of a split within the ANC. I think what has clearly sort of emerged for the public to see is cleavages between those members of the ANC who've benefited from people like the Guptas, not only the Guptas, but business people with deep patronage networks within the ANC, and those who are actually willing to stand up to the president and to those elements within the liberation sort of party, the Party of Liberation. So I think in the future, yes, we could be looking at a split. But the question is, will the good guys stay within the ANC or the good guys leave?
And of course, then the answer would depend who you call the good guys, Omar.
Indeed.
So we have people weighing in about the ANC and how responsive it is to the public. We have Winsome over here who says, we can't do anything about Zuma, only the ANC can. All we can do is talk and jump up and down. Zuma is the ANC's responsibility. And then we also got a video comment from Lee talking about this very thing. Take a listen.
The ANC-led government needs to not only take and hold accountable senior leaders like the president, but it also has to become a bit more approachable, a bit more self-reflective, and stop spinning and creating the impression that they are a liberation party that does nothing wrong. I think once the government is able to do that more consistently, people will feel heard, and there can be an open and honest engagement between people on the ground and the government that's meant to lead us.
Lester, what do you think? Does the ANC need to be more responsive to public pressure?
That tweet was on point, because the ANC is essentially an organization that is inward looking, and that it seeks to find the answers in itself and then to self-correct on its way. Already we have seen after this weekend's ANC National Executive meeting, where the ANC Secretary General, Gwede Mantashe, is seemingly taking back the reins of the party and trying to course correct this movement. So it's very much on point that it's up to the ANC to rein in members that are wayward and to find a solution themselves. As was explained before, that the ANC does have a 62% majority in Parliament, but with the number of MPs that are stacked in that way, they're not really allowed to vote with their conscience. They vote with a party line. So it is quite clear that the ANC is going to try and stage manage this current crisis that we are facing until it can develop some sort of plan, either to find a way or a mechanism to deal with the situation, or to somehow graciously, I may add, to show President Zuma the door. But I believe that's not going to happen anytime soon.
All right, you don't think that's going to happen? We'll hear from our other guests and what they think. I saw Shanti smiling there, and Sipho definitely looking like he wanted to get in. We'll get them all in on the post show, I promise. That's all the time we have for now. We're taking you to stream.aljazeera.com. See you there. Hello and welcome back to the Online Post Show. We're discussing the latest corruption allegations against South African President Jacob Zuma and what it means for him and the ruling ANC party. We're going to get right back to that discussion. Sipho, I could tell you wanted to get in as Lester was talking there. What did you want to add?
I just want to also touch on something that Alex, touched on. When people are critical of the ANC-led government, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't recognize the advances that, under this government, South Africans have realized and so on. But people are also saying, rather, let me say, we are saying, the underperformance of the government and the fact that people do not recognize this, people in the alliance, to speak in more franker terms, when they continue to actually pat ourselves on the backs because of the smaller achievements over a period of 22 years, that alone is withholding our potential, because we know what the potential South Africans have. And the fact that we have a president that is consistently accused of engaging directly or indirectly in activities that involve corrupt families, mafia-like style, takes away from what could actually advance South Africa's potential even further and so on. So, we have to be careful of patting ourselves on the backs for minor advancements over a period of 20 years. And I think within the alliance, comrade, we need to look frankly at the shortcomings, particularly since the administration led under President Zuma.
So Malika, whenever we cover South Africa, a lot of times actually we have a good bit of sense of humor that kicks in. I'm actually going to come to you with this one, Alex, so just give me just one bit. A lot of sense of humor actually kicks in, and in this case people were tweeting movie titles, altering them basically to mock the current scandal. You can take it a few of them over here. One of my favorites is Eat, Pray, Bribe. But then we also got one here from Deep Fried Man that says, sadly, the only title we're not going to see is Total Recall. Clearly, that's Deep Fried Man's solution for this whole scandal. And then we got an interesting prediction via video comment from Edward. Take a listen to it.
The current state capture scandal involving Jacob Zuma and the Gupta family has the potential to do serious long-term damage to his presidency. Not only have members of his own cabinet turned against him, but the ANC as a whole have decided to investigate the matter, along with the public prosecutor. If Jacob Zuma has lost the trust of his National Executive Committee, and with Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa waiting in the wings, the end to a Zuma presidency might be closer than we think.
Alex, what do you say to Edward, who seems to see that maybe Zuma's party is actually losing trust in him and turning against him? Do you see any basis for that conclusion?
Firstly, I wanted to respond to the statement made by my colleague earlier on. Look, we must not undermine the achievement that South Africa has made since democracy, since apartheid was dislodged in 1994. We have made major advances. Had it not been of the 1994 democratic breakthrough, the many things that are happening in South Africa, of course, minus the problem that we are discussing, would not have happened. So there are many achievements, and we must not undermine these achievements and say they are minor achievements, right? This does not mean we must not deal with problems when they arise. And in this current instance, we have a problem that has arisen, and for example, as the SACP, we have stood up and said, let us deal with this problem. We were the first political organization to call for a judicial commission of inquiry into the allegations that have been raised, because South Africa as a country is governed by the rule of law. It can't be that once there are allegations, a person is guilty. There must be credible processes, and those processes must arrive at the
Alex,
conclusion.
you're asking for credible
whether
processes.
or not
Shanti
the
has something she wants to add. Let's share the conversation a little bit. Alex,
and if they
Alex,
are
what did
valid,
you want to
the
add?
person will be found guilty, because no one has the capacity to stop any person from making allegations against him or her. So what has happened in this instance,
Alex,
to answer the question more directly,
you can hear Alex's passion clearly. What Sipho said a little bit earlier has sparked something in him. But Shanti wanted to add something. Go ahead, Shanti.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of get into this same sort of old solution, and the SACP's done it again, and it's a terrible suggestion that we should have a judicial commission of inquiry when, quite frankly, there's a blatant issue, there's a blatant problem, and there's evidence. Why do we need to wait for like the whole process of a commission? Why must we wait for a judicial commission of inquiry?
Alex, you definitely sparked something here. So Alex, finish your sentence. Alex, finish your sentence.
I think.
All right, Alex asked a question. Hold on, guys. Alex asked a question. Shanti, let's let Shanti get in here, and then you, Sipho.
Yeah, because all I want to say is, what good did the Judicial Commission of Inquiry do for the Marikana mine workers? It's a complete waste of money. We had a Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the arms deal. It's a complete waste of time and money, Alex, and you know that. You know that it takes years before there are any findings, and by that stage, God knows what will be done with the Guptas by then.
So an inquiry would be a waste of time, said Shanti. I want to hear Sipho's voice right now, Alex. Alex, pause 1 second.
Allegations against a person and demand action on the basis of the allegations you are making.
So, Alex, I guess from what you said, Shanti doesn't think it would work. I want to hear what Sipho has to say. Can we hear Sipho's voice?
Remember that even the Judicial Commission
we're going to lower your mic a little bit. I think because you're on the phone, you're not able to hear us as clearly. But I want to hear what Sipho had to say about this inquiry.
I want to direct Alex directly. Look, Alex, when Gwede Mantashe said, senior members of the ANC can no longer go through long drawn-out processes, such as, being on leave, or paid leave and so on, where you sit at home for 6 months, sometimes to 12 months on full pay whilst you are suspended and so on, once there is a number of allegations, negative allegations against senior members of the ANC, then it is the duty of the ANC, the disciplinary committee or the National Executive Committee to say, there's been a number of allegations coming from the public and so on. And therefore, we have a moral responsibility to say, comrade, can you please step down until such and such a time, when all these processes have gone on, because you are bringing disrepute to the organization and all this embarrassment. And I'm also not saying, the achievements since 1994 are minor in the sense that you are translating, but I am saying, if we consider how much minus corruption, how much this country can achieve in terms of public health care, for example, social development, social transformation, and so on, those things are being held back. Hence, the state will keep arguing as a response to the students' uprising, for free education, for social transformation, for decolonization. The responses of the government.
Your point is that the achievements aren't minor, but corruption is still a problem. Alex, I'll give you 2 sentences because we're running out of time. Alex, go ahead.
Okay, no, I want to intervene. We are governed by the rule of law in South Africa, even inside the African National Congress and the Tripartite Alliance, consisting of the African National Congress, the South African Communist Party, the Congress of South African Trade Union.
Can I just interrupt? Because Alex was saying this earlier, and I wanted to respond. And all I wanted to say, Alex, is a judicial commission of inquiry the most creative idea that the SACP has?
Give me a chance. I've heard your point. Give me a chance to make my point.
All right, Alex,
Please
make your
don't
point. Answer her
prevent me from
question.
making
Alex,
the point.
make your
I
point.
am saying you don't wake up in the morning and make allegations against individuals, and without due processes, you then decide that these individuals must step aside. That is injustice. That is why the African National Congress has established a process and called upon all those who have information to come forward. This is a process. You can't just wake up and no one, Shanti, you don't have a capacity yourself to stop anyone from making allegations against you. You are a journalist. Many people have made allegations against you, right? They were aggrieved. The Star, where you are working at independent media, they can't just...
So Alex, I'm going to pause you there because this isn't actually a show on Shanti and where she works and the allegations against her, but I did hear your point. I got your point. I got Shanti's point, and I heard Sipho's point. Poor Lester has been so quiet in the midst of this. I'm going to give Lester, I know you were enjoying it. You were sitting back and really enjoying the back and forth, but I'm going to give you the last word here in this conversation before we go to our community and where you think the ANC is headed.
I agree, firstly, with Sipho that the process of natural justice should follow its course. If there's an allegation, the president should be allowed to give his side of the story. That's saying a judicial inquiry reports to who? It reports to the president. So that then in itself is problematic. Going then to Sipho, what does the ANC then do? Do they ask the president to excuse himself in an election year? Do they see more as his presence a liability, or do they feel confident enough to run in an election year without the leader of the party? How do they then spin that? How do they then throw that out there? So there's some tough questions that need to be answered from the ANC itself and also from the government on how they take this issue forward.
Lester Kiewit, I love when our guests leave us with tough questions. They'll be answered on Twitter, though, because that's all the time we have. Though I will say, though, as Lester was posing those tough questions, Sipho was nodding his head. He looked like he agreed. But you'll have to get the answer on Twitter, because that's all the time we have in our TV show. I want to thank our guests, Sipho, Shanti, Alex, and Lester, for joining us for this very spirited conversation. It continues online with #AJStream, and because people are using that hashtag, I want to go to Omar to see what they've been saying.
I'll leave you with a quick spectrum of the views that we have on our online community. We have Thabo, who says, this Gupta family is made larger than life unnecessarily. It's simply party politics in play here. But co-conspirator says, politely recall our president from his post. He is not in it for the good of the people and never was. And then we have finally Sepiwe over here, who says, removing Zuma does not necessarily remove the problems associated with him or the mode of rule over which he has presided.
Thanks to our community. Take a look at my screen here right before we go off air, because I know that this conversation got heated and I want you to be able to talk to the guests. Here are their Twitter handles up on my screen. Feel free to tweet them, continue this conversation. Just make sure you include Omar and I by using #AJStream. We'll see you online.